Hey guys, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to be showcasing my version 2 Red Hood helmet. I'm going to go through the process of what inspired the design of this thing, how I put it all together. So let's get started. Now, if you've seen my video series on the version 1 helmet, you'll know that in the design of that, I was inspired heavily by the comic look, the very kind of simple, classic look of Red Hood's helmet, but I added some little touches to make it look more modern and practical. I added vents on the side for better hearing and vents on the cheek area for more ventilation when you're breathing. From experience wearing Red Hood helmets at conventions, they get really hot. It's also hard to hear stuff inside, so I wanted to add those kind of things just to make it a little more practical. But for the most part, I wanted it to look really classic. For the version 2, I wanted it to look like a natural progression from the version 1, like they're the same sort of character, but this one is a little bit more advanced looking. I wanted to work in more textures, harder angles, and just make it look a little more intense. Basically, if I was going to design Red Hood's helmet for a movie coming out today, this is what I would want it to look like. When I was first trying to come up with how I wanted the version 2 to look, it was really tricky. I think I was overthinking it a lot because I wanted it to be just my own version of Red Hood's helmet. So I was like sketching for the longest time and I just could not figure out how I wanted it to look. I just wasn't happy with what I was doing. Until one day I started fresh, I started over. I had a few ideas that, I had been tinkering with, but got rid of them and started fresh. And something just clicked, and like this shape along the side of like this coming around like this, and then this coming around here, like this kind of panel coming back like here, with this textured part on the cheek and the temple, that's just what I started working with. And I always had like the ear vent and the cheek vents, but I just didn't know exactly where I wanted them to go. Putting them like this, I thought they looked a little more aggressive, closer towards the mouth, and also that just makes it easier to breathe. The old helmet, it did work for more ventilation, but having it closer to the mouth area is just much better for breathing. I carried over the main features that I thought set my helmet apart, like the carbon fiber on the face, and as I said before, the vents on the side for hearing and breathing. I also added one more vent on the back, if you can see that, just for a little more ventilation, and that same carbon fiber backplate design I carried over from the first helmet. But as you can see here, there are other textures going on in this design. Like there's this knurling texture on the cheeks and on the temple. I really like the way it catches the light differently than the smoother parts. There are also these hard angles in the temple that carry all the way back onto the helmet, so that when the light hits it, you just have a lot of variations in lighting the helmet. On the old helmet, it kind of had like a furrowed brow, but on this one I just made it smooth. I also made the eye socket areas a little more concave with some hard angles on the outside, just for some more variation in lighting. There are also these hard angles that go along the cheek line. So when it's lit like this, for example, you can see it just gives it depth and character. This helmet also has a magnetic backplate like the first one, so that just pops off like that. These are just a lot more flush with the side of the helmet. The old ones protruded a lot, and the molds would kind of deteriorate over time in those areas where the magnets were, but these are a lot more flush. And they're also a lot stronger. Inside this thing, I do have the LED lenses. Just adds such a quality look to it. Really makes a difference. Once I was satisfied with the sketch, I reached out to my friend Matthew. He modeled the version 1 for me, and he was happy to do the version 2. He's always a pleasure to work with. This is his Instagram right here. Go give him a follow. The process of modeling the helmet was super smooth. I only had a few tweaks throughout the process for him. Like, he really adapted the sketch perfectly. Super happy with what he did. When the model was done, I needed to figure out how I wanted to go about printing it. I have 2 FDM printers, but I really wanted to try out resin printing. I don't have a resin printer yet. I plan on getting one, but I know a few people that do have them, so I thought I would, give them the file, they could print it for me, I'd pay them to print it. I sent the file off to an acquaintance. This is his Instagram. He's an amazing prop maker and costume creator. I mean, bless this guy. He He tried like 5 times to print the helmet for me, and some things just kept going wrong. he probably used a lot of resin for it, and it was just not working out. Like, it would get close to finishing and something would fail, a support would fail, and the print would cave in on itself. So I was a little bit discouraged. I was like, is there some error with the file? But I ended up sending it out to get it printed by, I just outsourced it by some company. When it was done, they shipped it to me really quickly. It took like maybe 2 weeks, I think. I filmed my reaction to opening the package when I got it because I'd never held a resin print before. I know that they're such high quality. I knew that a typical FDM printer was just not gonna capture this texture the way I wanted it to, so resin printing was the way to go. I also know that sanding time gets like cut in half because the resolution on a resin print is so much higher and it's a softer material, so the sanding process is just way easier, and it was. I mean, in comparison to FDM prints, when I've been sanding those things for days to get them super smooth, the resin print, it took me like 2 days and barely any effort. I didn't need to use like an 80 grit or anything super coarse. I was able to just go from like a 120 grit to like a 300 something, and then I finished it off with a 600 grit, I think. Wet sanding mostly. You could see just how smooth that came out. Then when it was all sanded, I needed to add that carbon fiber to it again. On the version 1 helmet, that was a real pain. That might have been the hardest part of the whole process. But for some reason, I don't know if it was just muscle memory, but it was really simple for this one. It went onto the face really easily, onto these lines on the head. It's probably because they're a little thicker on this one. I wanted them to be thicker and a little more visible, but that process was not hard at all. And then it was ready for molding. So I just made a basic silicone mold with a Plasti-Paste outer hard shell. I initially didn't really like Plasti-Paste, but now that I've kind of got a feel for how to work it and how to smooth it out, I actually quite like it and it does the trick. Then I could start doing castings, and this was the first casting I did. Came out looking perfect. The paint job on it is a little different than what I used to do. On this one, I did a gray primer, and then I put a Rust-Oleum gold over the whole thing. And then I put on the Duplicolor Metal Cast red, and I think the gold just gives it a much deeper red. Other people do that method as well. I used to just use the Duplicolor, the Metal Cast base coat, but I really like doing the gold. I think it just makes a huge difference in my eyes. I'll put it on just so you can see what it looks like on my head. I don't have a whole suit on or a neck seal or anything, but I just want you to see the proportion of it to my body. Got good movement. You can hear well. I'm going to be incorporating this into a Red Hood version 3 cosplay, which I basically have all done, so be on the lookout for a video showcasing that. And I have a bunch of other video ideas planned for cosplays that I've recently finished and other pieces that I've made that I want to show you guys. I'm really happy with how this helmet came out. I hope you guys like it. If you're interested in one, I have my online store linked in the description, along with a link to my Instagram account. You can see other stuff that I'm up to on there. I'm pretty active on Instagram. See you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.